Live. All right, guys. Let's say, hang on. All right, guys. We are live for the review of AEW Dynamite, and what a way to finish, man. I mean, we had what was lived up to the expectations of the Samoa Joe and Darby Allin no holds barred match. I mean, honestly, when you saw that graphic for the card, for that matchup, you knew that something big was going to happen, and you knew that it was going to be violent. But, excuse me, need a little bit of energy, so I grabbed myself a soda can tonight before we go ahead and finish up. So let's go ahead and get started with the review. We opened the show with Jon Moxley and Hangman Adam Page for a singles competition. And I just want to say this. Can we just talk about how much of a presence that Jon Moxley has in AEW for just a moment? Like, I know that everyone already knows this about how much of an MVP star that Jon Moxley is, but the man was only gone for like a week or two, and I didn't realize how much I had missed seeing Jon Moxley on my television until I saw him tonight, and it just reminded me about how much I love this man because he carries such a presence in that company, does Jon Moxley, and truly the heart and soul of AEW. And I just want to say, like, so if you're new to the reviews about how we do things here, I don't really tell you about all the spots that happen during the matches, mostly because, like, all of the matches usually are always good. And so they all have their own reasons why you should go check them out. I'll tell you, like, if a spot really stands out to me about what I would talk about, especially when it comes to the Samoa Joe and Darby Allin. There's a couple of spots that are still fresh in the brain right now after that. But this matchup was absolutely great. It's matches like these that are the reasons why AEW is my favorite wrestling show to watch, because almost every single match gives you something special. Almost every single match is always a pay-per-view caliber level of a matchup. And this was an absolute fight between Jon Moxley and Hangman Adam Page. I mean, these guys just beat the shit out of each other, and they were kicking out of so many great spots and everything, and it was a hell of a fight. Honestly, something that is definitely worth checking out. You know, it was great. In this matchup, though, there was something that stood out to me is that Hangman actually delivered a super kick one time to Jon Moxley and delivered a tombstone pile driver, which Moxley kicked out of. But that was like small little teases that Hangman, remember, he said that I have to repair some damages that I've done before, and that was clearly a shout out to the Young Bucks there. There was a point where Hangman locked in the Bulldog choke. The one move. Well, I see that someone just hit the like button. Thank you very much for that, guys. Much appreciated. But we saw that Hangman hit the Bulldog choke on Moxley, and Moxley actually somehow managed to turn that around into a pinfall and got the win over on Hangman there. And that is a great way to keep this feud going, because after the matchup, Hangman was not happy that he lost. He was arguing with the referee. Hangman did not take the loss kindly, as he was very upset about losing. There was no even Hangman was like upset, but he shook Mox's hand at the end. No, they just kept wanting to fight. They got into a bit of a shouting match with each other, did Hangman and Moxley. And Wheeler Yuta and Claudio were actually out there with Moxley after the matchup was over. And just the mere fact that there was two members of the Blackpool Combat Club out there with Jon Moxley, making it three, obviously, right there. And Hangman is looking to, the story seems like Hangman is potentially wanting to get back in touch with the Young Bucks. That leads to a potential possibility of a 3-on-3 match. The only problem is, in a situation like that, where does that leave Kenny Omega? Because the Young Bucks and Kenny are the trios champions. Where does that leave Kenny then in that situation there? But also at the same time, when I thought about that, I was like, oh, wait a second. I was like, maybe when the Blackpool Combat Club and the Elite will clash, maybe it'll be a 4-on-4 way. Bryan Danielson will be finished with his program with MJF, and maybe we'll get the Elite versus the Blackpool Combat Club. We'll just have to sit back and wait and see. We go to the next segment, which was Jamie Hayter was in the back with Renee Paquette and as well as Allie. I call her Allie, not the bunny. It's the same thing as like how they call on SmackDown. They call, I call Pete Dunne, and not Butch. It's Allie, not the bunny. Sorry. But Allie challenged Jamie Hayter to an eliminator match, and the eliminator matches actually haven't been utilized too often as of lately, in my personal opinion. So I think it's quite all right to bring them back for a little bit, especially since the rankings in AEW aren't exactly something that matters anymore, because the rankings are not present anymore in AEW. It's more about what's the right story to go by. The ranking system was something interesting to try out, but if it's not working out, then it's okay to ditch it, which is what Tony Khan has done. So Allie challenged Jamie Hayter to a eliminator matchup. Jamie Hayter said, "I'll take you on," but Renee was actually informed that something was happening in the back, and they actually, which I found pretty cool, there was a video screen in the background where when Renee was interviewing Jamie Hayter and Allie, and they were actually showing that Saraya and Toni Storm were beating down Britt Baker on that TV screen there. Now, I think, and some people will hate this for what I'm about to say, is that it's so smart how Tony Khan has actually accepted the fans have just gravitated so much towards Jamie Hayter that they have turned Jamie into a babyface, and that they turned Saraya and Toni Storm heel, kind of showing that he's going with the flow of what the fans really want. So trying to really, listen into what the fans wanted. And to be honest, it's actually quite surprising, because if you remember, we were all wanting to see Jamie Hayter split from Britt Baker, and Tony Khan didn't do that. He kept them together, but in the end, we're getting what we all want. What he wanted by keeping Jamie Hayter and Britt Baker together, and what we wanted by Julia. No, not Julia. I'm sorry. So many J's going through my mind right now. I'm sorry. Jamie Hayter being the AEW Women's World Champion and at the top of the division. So everyone's getting what they want right now. So kudos to Tony for finding a way to make it all work. We go to the next matchup. The Acclaimed had an enhancement matchup. Usually what I like to try and do is get the name of the guys who are in the enhancement match, but I don't think they put up a graphic or a nameplate for the wrestlers who the Acclaimed were facing. So the matchup ended pretty quickly. I didn't really get to see. Again, I didn't get to hear who their names were or anything. But after the matchup, the Gun Club came out. Of course, they got chants of ass boys. The Acclaimed. So the Gun Club said that they wanted to get an answer from the Acclaimed if they would, defend their AEW Tag Team Championships against them. And the Acclaimed said, "Well, we're a fan of the people, or the people. We're like the people's choices, and something about being a fan favorite." And they said, "We're gonna let the fans decide on this one." The Acclaimed asked the fans if the Guns deserve a title shot, and the fans, of course, told them, "Hell no, they don't deserve that." And to which the Acclaimed said that they'd have no title match, and the Guns and the Acclaimed then got into a bit of a shouting match. The Guns were like, "Don't listen to these fans. They don't know what they're talking about," and they just keep asking for that title match, to eventually where Billy Gunn got in between the two between all four men and separated them. And Billy was like, "You know what? If you all just want to beat the hell out of each other, go for it. But I won't sit back and watch this." as Billy was making his way up to the ramp. I can't remember which one of the members of the Gun Club said this. He grabbed a mic and said, "Yeah, that's right. Go ahead and turn your back. Do exactly what you do. You leave us behind, and you turn your back on us, just like you did when we were kids." And then he said, "When you're in the back, go ahead and drown yourself in your pills, just like you used to." Which that forced Billy to just come back so pissed off. He made his way back into the ring, and I thought Billy was actually going to challenge the Gun Club to a handicap matchup next week on Dynamite, but Billy just said that that the Acclaimed will defend their tag team championships next week against the Gun Club. There was a certain point, unfortunately, where the microphone cut out on Billy Gunn to where the Acclaimed had to give Billy one of their mics. This is a problem that seems to be happening quite a bit with Tony Khan's with AEW right now. I don't think it happened last week, though, if I can recall, but it's definitely more of a repeating process that happens of the mics cutting out. So I understand technical difficulties happen, but it's just a little bit embarrassing at times for the microphones to keep cutting out, especially when WWE's mics don't really cut out. They might cut out every once in a while, but it's not as frequently. So that's just something that kind of needs to be addressed. Again, I understand technical difficulties happen, but just needs to be looked at so it doesn't keep happening as often. After that, we had an interview with Jungle Boy, where one of the interviewers, I can't remember his name, he's not Renee Paquette, asked Jungle Boy, "We've seen you and Hook teaming up for quite a bit. Could this, what's next for the two of you?" And Jungle Boy said, "Look, I had fun teaming with Hook, but I've done the tag team thing before, and, honestly, that didn't, I had some gold with that, but it didn't end up too well for me at the end there. And so it's time for me to move on to bigger and better things. And this year, I'm going to title for myself, not with somebody else, but for me." So Jungle Boy has officially staked his claim that he is in the singles competition for the titles, which, I mean, obviously that was pretty obvious. But which is good because I was a little bit worried because they were really pushing this whole Jungle Hook thing, and both men were good for each other for the few weeks, but after that it was just best for them to just move on and keep doing what they're doing by themselves. So I'm glad that they're keeping Jungle Boy as his own man right now and they're not sticking him with Hook. Next up, we had Konosuke Takeshita between Brian Cage. Not much really happened in this matchup, if I'm honest. There was a couple moments that really made me go, "Holy cow," by watching Konosuke out there, where he was showing off some of his strength against Brian Cage there, which really impressed me. Konosuke did get the victory over on Brian Cage. Not much else to say. I don't think this was the best a match on the show, but it was still a good matchup, nonetheless. After this, we had a interview with Chris Jericho. It was announced by Sammy Guevara that if Ricky Starks really wants to face Chris Jericho again, that he'll have to run the gauntlet by facing he'll have to face against Cool Hand Ange and Danny Magic, and either after, if Guevara, or not Guevara, fuck, I'm sorry, I botched that one up. If Ricky Starks can beat those two, then he will face either Sammy Guevara or Daniel Garcia. It'll be announced on the day of next week who Ricky Starks will face, if it will be Guevara or Garcia. I expect that it would be, I get the feeling that it would be Daniel Garcia who would be the one to be the final man to take on Ricky Starks there. But then we had our next matchup, which I was so looking forward to this one when it was announced, of Bryan Danielson and Timothy Thatcher. When they announced this last week on Dynamite, I was like, Timothy Thatcher? I clapped my hands and I was so happy because I was like, I can't believe we're gonna get Timothy fucking Thatcher, man. I think it was a great showing that they gave Thatcher a lot of offense in this matchup over on Danielson here. The best thing about Bryan Danielson, man, is that he really likes to look out for every single wrestler out there. Danielson loves to give back to his fellow pro wrestlers, and he did that for Timothy Thatcher tonight. Timothy had a lot of offense here. It was more of a technical style matchup that Timothy Thatcher was wrestling over on Danielson. And for some people, they might consider that boring, but just, I love a good technical matchup, man. And there was some certain points where Timothy Thatcher was getting like real aggressive. I mean, he slammed, Danielson's arm onto the on the ring apron, and he even it looked like he freaking uppercutted the freaking under the arm here of Danielson, because remember, Danielson's left shoulder was injured by Brian Cage last week, and so Timothy Thatcher was really working on that arm there in this matchup. At some point, the referee was knocked down, and MJF saw an opportunity to come out there and to really knock out Danielson with a Dynamite Diamond Ring, but Konosuke came out and beat the hell out of MJF, sending MJF to the back, and after Danielson's victory, Danielson got the victory using the Busaiko knee over Timothy Thatcher. We saw that Konosuke and MJF were still actually battling backstage, and which was actually really cool. It was like they were battling in a hallway, and it was not crowded or anything. It was actually just a pretty cool, different type of setting that we don't really see often, in my opinion. Or if memory serves me correctly, we don't really see a setting like that often for in wrestling when guys are wrestling backstage. But both of them were being separated by security guards, and as well as other staff there. And then Renee actually came in and she said, guys, I just got news from Tony Khan that next week on Dynamite, it will be MJF and Konosuke Takeshita in an eliminator matchup. And I loved how Taz lost his mind. He's like, wait a second, that can't happen. He's like, MJF the champ, he never authorized this. And the rest of them were like, what do you mean he never authorized this? MJF's not the boss. Tony Khan gets to decide when the champion wrestles and when he doesn't wrestle. And Taz's like, yeah, but it's like, come on, man, you got to give the champ some leeway or something that Taz said. And I just love that there. So we've got some big stakes coming up next week. If you think about it, if Konosuke does beat MJF next week, would Konosuke just get thrown into the matchup between Danielson and MJF at Revolution? I doubt that would happen. I think that, Konosuke, if he does beat MJF, he'll just get a championship match next week. That's probably how it would work out. But could you just imagine a 60-minute Iron Man matchup, triple threat style, Konosuke Takeshita, MJF, and Bryan Danielson? Just let that sink in there and think for a moment, holy shit, that would be pretty epic, because I don't think we've ever actually seen an Iron Man matchup multi-man style. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong there, but I don't think we've ever actually seen that before. But next we had Jade Cargill and Red Velvet. The matchup was fine. No offense to the women, but nothing really that was that impressive for me. But there was a moment where Kiera Hogan actually came out and attacked Jade Cargill's manager. I have to get her name. I'm sorry. I got to make sure to write down some of these people so I can give them the credit give them the credit that they deserve on the show. But that distraction there, when Kiera Hogan came out and attacked Jade's manager, was enough of a distraction. Was enough of a distraction for Red Velvet to almost look like a roundhouse kick or an enziguri on Jade Cargill, where she had Jade pinned for the count of 5, but Aubrey Edwards was too busy trying to get Kiera Hogan out of there. And but in the end result was always the same. Jade Cargill hit Jaded on Red Velvet to get 50 wins and 0 losses in AEW. So the streak continues for Jade Cargill. And is Kiera Hogan and Red Velvet still going to be a thing going after Jade? I honestly hope not. I think that there are bigger fish to come in there and fry Jade Cargill, but we'll have to wait and see. We went to the back where Renee was actually checking on Britt Baker, and Ruby Soho actually came in and was trying to check in on Britt to see how she was doing. And Brett's like, wait, you want to check in on me now after the beatdown already happened? And Ruby's like, I didn't know anything about it. And Brett's like, yeah, sure you did. And she's like, you are closer. You've been, you've known Saraya and Tony Storm longer than we have. She's like, you're clearly involved with them. And she's like, I'm totally not. And Brett was like, whatever, just I'm fine. So you can leave now. And so Ruby just like kind of scoffed it off and left. Well, we come to the main event of the evening. Let me just tell you a couple of spots here that stuck out for me. Okay, so early in the matchup, Darby Allin came out with a sweatshirt I thought was just covered in like studs to make them look like they were thumbtacks. He was wearing a thumbtack sweatshirt, was Darby Allin, and immediately ran into the corner, hit the coffin splash on Samoa Joe, cutting Joe up a little bit on his arm there. Joe got the upper hand at a certain point, and Samoa Joe actually pulled the table out, and Darby Allin immediately did the suicide dive out to Samoa Joe, smacking the table right in Joe's face, and even a bit of the table crashed into the cameraman there as well. Darby eventually pulled away from the steps at a certain point, and you're going to hear me say this a lot at a certain point just because I'm not going to call the match, spot by spot. But Joe threw Darby out into the steps. Darby went knees first into the steel steps, rolled over the steps, and his spine went rolling off the barricade. And they were then fighting in the crowd. Samoa Joe and Darby Allin were fighting up the stairs, to which Joe, he didn't military press Darby Allin, but he just like threw him over the guardrail, like that railing when you're walking down the stairs that fans will use. He threw him over the railing, and Darby Allin like landed on the side of his body. I think it looked like on concrete stairs. And eventually they made their way back down to the ring. And then Joe, flung Darby Allin in back over the barricade. And the angle was not the best, so I couldn't really tell if Darby Allin, landed on the steel steps when he came back in there. But the announcer said that Darby may have landed on his head when he came crashing back in there. Oh, God, I can't remember some of the spots that happened after that. There was one point where Darby was just, beating Samoa Joe up in the corner, and Joe just threw him over the rope. He just threw this man like he was a small child. Like, unbelievable. Look, Darby Allin is not the biggest man in there. We know this. But Darby Allin probably has to weigh about, 140 pounds. Maybe that's too much. 125, like the man is small, but Joe made him look even smaller by just throwing him around like that. And then let's see. Darby Allin eventually, unfortunately for Darby Allin, he got Joe down at a certain point. Darby was trying to put the sweatshirt back on that had all the thumbtacks on there, but all the thumbtacks were so stuck with the shirt there once it got crumbled up and everything. And so Darby was trying to put it back on, but Darby made an audible call, and he said, "You know what? I can't do this. I can't get this out. This is looking stupid. It's not looking stupid, but it's taking up too much time." And so Darby went to the top rope and just did the coffin drop. Samoa Joe kicked out. There was probably a couple of the thumbtacks that got Joe. And then, oh my God, I don't remember if this happened right now or if this came later. But there was a certain point where Samoa Joe grabbed the thumbtack sweatshirt of Darby Allin and masked Darby Allin. He put it up over his face and was pulling back on it, to which Darby Allin was fighting blind. He took his thumbs and started pressing them into Samoa Joe's eyeballs. Keep in mind, Darby Allin is, blindfolded. This looked fucking painful as hell. I think I covered my own eyes because I could not believe what I was seeing. But they like he did that, and I was just like, oh my God. I was like, I can't believe that they just did that. And I was just thinking to myself, like, does Darby Allin even know how much pressure he might be putting on Joe's eyeballs? Like, he's literally fighting blind. I don't remember if it was at this point, but Darby Allin rolled out of the ring and started cutting up, the strings that keep the ring mat in place. Darby Allin was cutting the shit out of this out of the ring there. Unfortunately, there was a couple of times that Darby was having to stay a little bit more cutting on something, just because Darby, the blade might have been dull, or maybe Darby doesn't have the best of strength in there, but he got it cut for the most part. He was ripping up the canvas so we could see the wooden boards, and I think this is actually a great callback, is that Excalibur said we've only seen one other time in AEW where the wooden boards were shown to the AEW fans, and it did not end well for that man. And I was like, yep, that was Kenny Omega. So I think it's a great callback to see that, you're going into desperation mode and you're thinking that this is going to help you by ripping up the mat and using the wooden boards to your advantage, but it does not, because whoever has, taken apart the wooden board and wanted to go the extra mile, it's never worked out for anybody. So after Darby Allin got through ripping up the panel, Darby Allin went to dive out to Samoa Joe. There was a table that was leaned up against the barricade, which Darby Allin just went flung right in through the into the table. Darby went diving out there and went crash and burned to the table. I may have gotten my spots mixed up, but Joe took Darby to the middle rope, and I was expecting, Joe took Darby to the top rope, and I was expecting, all right, Darby's going to fight out. We're going to get the coffin drop. Darby retains. I thought Darby Allin was going to retain tonight, but Samoa Joe, remember, Samoa Joe, and I'm not putting any blame on Samoa Joe whatsoever, but remember that it was the Muscle Buster that took out Tyson Kidd and ended Tyson Kidd's wrestling career. This motherfucker, Darby Allin, Samoa Joe is standing on the middle rope, has Darby Allin up for the Muscle Buster, and I'm thinking, Darby's fighting out, right? He's got to. And no, Joe jumps off, hits the Muscle Buster on the wooden floor of the ring. I literally, put my hands to my face, and I fell down on my couch watching that. I was like, I can't believe that fucking happened. I was like, this motherfucker did that? I was like, oh my God. And at that point, like, I wanted Darby to win, but after seeing a spot like that, I'm like, this is a two-way street. I'm like, Darby can kick out, and fans will hate that was not the ending spot, myself included, because how do you finish a match after you do something like that? Or does it make it look like Darby Allin is more of a badass by kicking out of that? But thankfully, Darby Allin didn't kick out, because I don't know how else you could finish a matchup quite like that. I was like, fucking madness was this matchup between these two. I could not believe that Darby Allin took a spot like that. I mean, this, like, I say this before, I say this a lot because I think it, but I just say it because it really proves to the point about how tough that Darby Allin is. Like, when AEW had their bad timing of injuries, Adam Cole, Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, there was a lot of wrestlers that were getting hurt left and right in AEW. CM Punk, one of those guys included. Darby Allin was always there. Darby Allin has only ever been injured one time in AEW, and it was a minor injury. And I was like, after everything this man puts his body through, and I'm like, and he still goes. Like he doesn't get injured. I was like, how does he do it? I have no idea. I was like, Darby Allin is literally superhuman. It's freaking unbelievable. But in the midst of Samoa Joe's celebration, we heard familiar music of Wardlow. Wardlow came out with a suit and all, and Wardlow actually came out. His hair was actually cut short, and actually, I think Wardlow looked more of a badass with his hair cut short. He came out, ran through the ring, ran down the ramp, I should say, got in the ring and speared Samoa Joe, and quickly was setting Joe up for the power bomb. Joe escaped, and Wardlow was they send out security guards out there to try to keep Wardlow separated from Samoa Joe, and Wardlow just starts beating them up. So, TK, let's talk a little bit here. I know that you think that Wardlow beating up security guards is cool and all, but we've been there and done that. I think that we don't need to be really, keep sending out the security guards like that. But hey, you know what? Whatever helps these kids get their foot in the front door, right, of the wrestling business, any way that it can help other people. So I guess it's a double-edged sword. There's no need to keep sending security guards out there just for Wardlow to beat the fuck out of them. But another way, it's also, I guess, good to let the next generation get their spots in by getting their moments in their early wrestling career going for that. Unfortunately, the AEW ran out of time. Though Wardlow had one of the security guards up for a power bomb, and I think he was going to toss them out to a pile of other security guards. But we've seen that spot before, so it's nothing new really. But just kind of a shame that they ran out of time for that. But it's all good, I guess. But honestly, I can't think of a better way to have closed out the show than with that type of carnage that we saw with Samoa Joe and Darby Allin. So, honestly, you can listen to my review, and I'm thankful for that. But honestly, that matchup, you really should go see for yourself in any way that you can. It's a small TV match, but man, it's bloody, it's violent. It's got everything that you want in it. They went everywhere except for backstage, did Joe and Darby, and it was great, man. It was maybe I wasn't really keeping track. I would have to say between 15 to 20 minutes of just chaos, man. It was so much fun to watch those guys go out there and do what they did. So that's the review for AEW Dynamite. I thought the show was quite fun, keeping me awake for the most part, and I didn't really have to, sip down any of my drink because I hate if the show goes long and if I start yawning. So I grabbed some soda to have some extra energy. But just talking about my excitement here on the show was just the right amount of energy that I needed. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. If you want, feel free to hit that like button if you feel I deserve it. It's all much appreciated. Go ahead and hit the subscribe as we do wrestling reviews every single week, and we do wrestling gameplay videos as well too. You can leave a comment down below about what your favorite matchup was on Dynamite. I think it's safe to say that my favorite matchup was Samoa Joe versus Darby Allin in the No Holds Barred matchup. My second favorite was definitely Moxley and Hangman. That was a war between those two. Those are two matches that you guys definitely should go see if you can find any way to watch this show. Definitely would be Joe and Darby and Hangman and Moxley. And hit the bell icon so you'll get a ring when I go live for any of my videos. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and I hope you have a great rest of your night. And as always, you know the drill. We stay. Oh, dang! I got everyone here right now. I got more people here right now, but trying to sign off. But you know what? That's okay. If y'all want to chat right now, I can sit around and chat with y'all about the show. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to get off right now before we have anyone else come in. So thanks, guys, for tuning in, and I will see you all on the next edition. Take care.